Hello, everyone. Okay, I'm going to walk through how to do chunk 2B on your personal narrative. So please follow along with me. Watch my screen, not looking at your stuff. So if I'm going back to my personal narrative notability note, I'm going to go back and I am going to refresh myself of what I am talking about. I'm talking about the time that I spilled milk on my computer in my dorm room. So with that being said, I already talked about the exposition and how I did it. And then what I need to talk about now is my rising action and my climax. So the instructions for part 2A are the same. You need to make sure you tell who, what, where, and why, how. But the parts that you're going to include in this paragraph are going to be your rising action and your climax. Kind of like we talked about yesterday, you were going to write 5 to 7 sentences. So that is your goal on this section. Now, this one might be a little bit longer because we're talking about your rising action, and that is okay. Do not stress about that quite yet. This is just your rough draft. So for my rising action, I said I had to call my parents, and I lied about what happened. I had to meet my mom at the Apple store. We had lunch. The Apple tech called and said that my computer is dead. It is done. And then for my climax, I put that my mom figures out that I lied about the type of damage that happened to my computer, which we know from yesterday. I spilt my cereal on it when I was watching The Vampire Diaries. So I'm going to go ahead and start on how I want to do this. So I am going to say, after I realized what had happened to my MacBook, I quickly called my mom, because that really was the next thing that I did. When she asked me what was wrong and why I was upset, I panicked. I decided to lie to her and say that my MacBook just shut off with no reason. Okay, so I'm going to say how I felt, though, at that moment. She told me to calm down and that we could take it to the Apple, capitalize A, the Apple store to get it fixed. Instead of, let's see, not calm, because I already said calm. Instead of feeling better, my stomach filled with dread about my lie. Okay, so that's how I was feeling at that moment. So I'm gonna then move on to time and address how now we're on the next day. The following day, I met my mom in Southlake to drop my computer off with the technician. He told us to come back in 2 hours and he would have it all fixed. Feeling better about what happened, we decided to grab some lunch at La Madeleine, one of my favorite places to get lunch. So we go there, we eat lunch, and then we need to talk about how in moving and going, learning out kind of what happened after that. After we finished eating, we headed back to the Apple store to pick up we went back to the Apple store. On the way, the technician called and I quickly answered it on speaker phone. he told us that my computer was completely dead and there was nothing he could do to fix it. My mom questioned him about why, and that's when she found out the truth. He told her he could not fix it because there was so much milk damage. I knew at that moment that I had been caught in my lie. Oop, not lie. Okay, so I went through and I wrote it all. So now what I need to do is I need to go back and I need to reread it to see if it makes sense. First though, I'm going to count my sentences. So I'm going to see, do I have enough sentences on here? So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so I clearly have enough. It's okay if you have more. I already said that. Now that I have my sentences, I'm going to reread it out loud. So it says, after I realized what had happened to my MacBook, I quickly called my mom. When she asked me what was wrong and why I was upset, I panicked. I decided to lie to her and say that my MacBook just shut off with no reason. She told me to calm down and that we could take it to the Apple Store to get it fixed. Instead of feeling better, my stomach filled with dread about my lie. The following day, I met my mom in Southlake to drop my computer off with the technician. He told us to come back in 2 hours and he would have it all fixed. Feeling better about what happened, we decided to grab some lunch at La Madeleine. After we finished eating, we headed back to the Apple Store. On the way, the technician called and I quickly answered it on speakerphone. He told us that my computer was completely dead and there was nothing he could do to fix it. My mom questioned him about why, and that's when she found out the truth. He told her he could not fix it because there was so much milk damage. I knew at that moment I had been caught in my lie. So overall, I feel like it's really good. It makes sense. It's going in order from beginning to end. For me personally, I would take the next step to then go back and see, could I add a simile, a metaphor, hyperbole? Could I add any type of that figurative language in there to make it sound a little more interesting? But if I can't find anything that fits, it's okay to leave it like it is. Maybe I could go back and find some synonyms for my adjectives. Because I said a lot of he said, she said, and so forth. But overall, I feel like I've done what I've been asked, and I really tried to make it make sense and also go in order. That's the biggest piece. My next step would then be to read my introduction, my first paragraph, and then read it directly into my next one to see if it makes sense. So it says, at midnight, I was avoiding doing all of my homework for my British literature class. Instead, I started binging season 3 of Vampire Diaries. Since my dorm room didn't have a couch, I was juggling my laptop and my snack on my bed. My phone rang loudly and it startled me. When I went to snatch my cell phone, I accidentally knocked the edge of my cereal bowl. All of the Special K red berries and milk spilled on the keyboard of my white MacBook. At that moment, I literally cried over spilled milk. After I realized what had happened to my MacBook, I quickly called my mom. When she asked me what was wrong and why I was upset, I panicked. I decided to lie and tell her and say that my MacBook just shut off with no reason. She told me to calm down and that we could take it to the Apple Store to get it fixed. So overall, I think it flows. I think it really matches up. Again, I would probably go back and try to make it a little more interesting with some figurative language, some different types of adjectives. And so that's what I want you to do next. I want you to first remember you need to go back and you need to look at your plot diagram. Double check that you know what your rising action, your climax is. Then go straight to chunk 2B. And you are going to do that part. You're going to read through it and type it out. Remember, type it. Do not handwrite it. Once you've finished, read through it multiple times, see if there's any issues or if there's anything that you missed. Last but not least, it's a good idea to go from paragraph 1 to paragraph 2 and read to see if they flow together. Okay, so now you're going to move on and do that on your own essay.